Swanson, editor and partner with the Tillamook County Pioneer, and today we're going to chat with Mark Beach, local historian and the author of this new book that will benefit the Nehalem Valley Historical Society, and it features our 3 North County villages, Manzanita, Nehalem, and Wheeler.
Kathleen and I moved to the area here in 1992, and we brought some of our business with us. We were book publishers ourselves at the time, so it took us a while to wind down our publishing operation. But we quite shortly got involved in a lot of community activities. Kathleen was one of the founders of CARDM. I was on the initial founding board of the nonprofit Reinhardt Clinic when it changed to that. I became very active in the library as well as active here in the Historical Society. So for quite a few years I was director of the annual library used book sale. And then I also got involved on the board of CARDM and was chair of that board for a while. So I've been involved in a number of community organizations, and one of the history classes that I teach, when I do teach it, is to give a short history of half a dozen or so, maybe 10, of the community organizations that the class seems most interested in. And often we'll invite to that particular class whoever happens to be chair of the Alder Creek Clinic Board or the NCRD Board or whoever who wants to stand up and say a couple words, as long as I can hold them to a couple of words, right, about their organization.
So Mark, got a new book out. Why don't you tell us what started the process for the new book?
Well, as you know, for the last 15 years or so, I've been teaching classes in local history. And every time I teach one of those classes, somebody says, "Hey Mark, when are you going to get a book? When are you going?" And I've always said, "Well, yeah, well, one of these days I'm doing enough work." But I've always kind of admired the Images of America series that this book is. And I finally thought, well, I guess I could do that. So I finally got around to it. I started about 1.5 years ago, and here it is.
So it features our 3 villages.
Yes.
Nehalem, Wheeler, and Manzanita.
Yes.
And so how many images are in the book?
There's about 200 photos in the book. And the count of photos includes some artwork that was done, particularly with regard to our Native American population, the Nehalems here, where there of course aren't very many photos. So there are half a dozen paintings, images of paintings. Now, all the photos here and the paintings are in black and white. So you'll see, the readers will see, it's the first few images of the book of our indigenous population are actually artistic creations.
What part of local history does this book cover, Mark?
Well, it starts with discussing our Native American population. In fact, the very first 3 or 4 paragraphs of the introduction take us all the way back to the tsunami of 1700 and what it must have felt like for some of the indigenous population. So I certainly tried to draw a picture of the indigenous population prior to the contact with the white contact. It takes us all the way from then up to today, or at least maybe up to yesterday.
So Mark, we've talked about the different parts of the book. Tell us what your favorite part of the book is.
Well, one of the things that appeals to me the most is the quality of the photos. And here I'm talking about the print reproduction. Whoever the people that produce these books, that print these books, have good control over their printing presses. And so the photos are sharp and crisp. As I said, they're all black and white, but they're well produced. The paper's good and that kind of thing. There'll be a lot of photos in here that people haven't seen, even if they've taken my history classes, because along the way I would find myself saying, well, you know, I've always been going to get around to look for a photo of this or look for a photo of that. Now's the time to do it. So there are some images in here that some people might find, I don't want to say surprising, but new to them. I have 3 stories that I thought were important to include in the book. And one story for each of the 3 communities. because each of our three communities has a conversation that's currently going on about a major change in that community. So, for example, what is going to happen with regard to the old Reinhardt Hospital in Wheeler? Now that's it. Nobody knows exactly, but we know the hospital is somehow is not going to be a hospital anymore. And we know that the food bank is downstairs and they need to figure out how to keep serving people without tearing down the building around them. So I want to have an aerial photo of the hospital in the 1970s. Okay, the current Reinhardt Clinic board building is not built yet. The original care center is located at this end of the hospital, which was torn down when the current care center was built. So I used this opportunity then to write a fairly long caption about the history of that hospital and its relationship to the Reinhardt family and the Reinhardt Clinic. Another conversation, and we are well along with that one, has to do with NCRD, the old school. And so I have two photos, one of that building in 1921 and one of that building when the new wing was added in 1930, and that new wing includes the swimming pool. So some talk about what the original school was, and here's the completed building, and how that closed down as a school. But here we are 100 years after building the original one. The community is still using that building. The financing is in place to build a new pool. We're going to have a new pool.
Very exciting.
And all details to be arranged, but basically the concept is approved. So then the last one, and this is one of my favorite pictures over here, which is, let's see if any of you can guess what that is. That is an aerial view of the Manzanita Elementary School in the 1950s. Where did that come from? Because I searched and searched and searched for a photo of that school, which is now known as Underhill Plaza, and was purchased by the city of Manzanita to become the new city hall. I couldn't find an image, so a friend of mine and I got out his drone, took some drone pictures. Then I took those drone pictures over to a local artist, an architect, and said, can you recreate what that building probably looked like in the mid-50s when it was a school? And that's the result right there. And so another long caption that says a little bit about the history of the Pine Grove Elementary School, what happened to the school kids that first went there, what happened in the 1950s, and how we got up to 2019 when the city purchased that entire property.
Mark, could you read the passages from the book that are maybe special to you or have some special significance for us?
Several people have already seen copies of the book, and 2 or 3 of them who are experienced teachers loved this photo and the caption. Grade school teachers are pictured in Nehalem in 1914. School boards expected teachers, quote, not to marry or keep company with men, not loiter downtown in any of the ice cream stores, not travel beyond city limits without permission, not smoke cigarettes or dress in bright colors, wear at least 2 petticoats and dresses not more than 2 inches above the ankles, and under no circumstances dye your hair.
Is the book dedicated to anyone in particular, Mark?
For everyone in our community, police and other first responders, officials and staff, business owners, volunteers and citizens who worked so hard, gave so generously, and cooperated so well during the stressful year of 2020.
Where is this book available for purchase in the local area?
Well, the initial availability is at the bookstore, Cloud and Leaf Bookstore, and that's always a go-to place to go. In Manzanita, they will also be at T-Spot and at Manzanita News and Espresso. In Nehalem at the Wild Coast Goods, and in Wheeler at The Roost. So again, we wanted, the Historical Society is the one who shares the credit here.
Right.
And incidentally, Laura, the Historical Society gets all of the profits from the sale of this, royalties and all the profits. So, I mean, it's I don't know how to phrase it. It's something I wanted to donate to the Historical Society.
Thank you, Mark, for sharing your stories and your photos and with putting together this book for the Nehalem Valley Historical Society. Images Across America, Manzanita, Nehalem and Wheeler by Mark Beach, and it's available in our local stores. Be sure and look for information on the Tillamook County Pioneer.